There's a couple things that the Nationals need to have in 2025 in order to be successful, and James Wood, the former number one overall prospect, is at the forefront of that. What is your confidence in James Wood being a superstar?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course, the video version over on YouTube for a new improved studio. You can go check us out over on YouTube and check it out. We will have more bobbleheads there and some more antiques around this part here, but we'll discuss and have that for you later on in the week. Now, let's get into a weekend spring training preview, and that's going to be later on in the show today, but stick around for that because the Nationals have a few games that you're going to want to hear about. We'll preview that for you to end today's program, but the Nationals, I'm going to make their case as to why things are out of their control for 2025, and they have a very tough road to the postseason that we'll get on a little bit later on in the show today. And you're going to want to hear that because, again, you might be high in the Nationals, but you might want to take it easy. We'll discuss that later on in the show today. But what is your confidence in James Wood being a superstar? We'll set the bar at a 1 to 10. What is your confidence in him being a star? I'll answer that for you after we tell you about today's sponsors over at FanDuel. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. So we get started today discussing James Wood and your confidence in him being a superstar for the Nationals moving forward. And I can tell you this, my confidence of James Wood living up to the expectations of being a star for the Washington Nationals is at an 8. And we talked a lot about this on yesterday's show, not James Wood specific, but something that I'm going to be saying here any moment now. What separates you as a player? What makes you a star player? For instance, on yesterday's show, what makes Dylan Cruz is the fact that he is an elite contact hitter and he's just really good at everything he does. I don't want him to be a power hitter. That's not what he's best at. He's best at just being really good at everything. And that's what makes him special. Mackenzie Gore, what makes him special? He's got nasty stuff and he's got swing and miss potential. That's what I want to see him do. With James Wood being 6'7", nearly 230 pounds, what makes James Wood special is the fact that this guy has elite, unique power that you do not see on the diamond every single year. There's only a handful of major leaguers who have been successful at that height, and James Wood is going to be amongst those guys going forward. I have him about an 8 out of 10, the confidence level of him being a star. And I think you probably should also. One thing that I noticed with James Wood last year, as soon as he got called up, was the power is going to be there. James Wood is going to be an elite hitter. It might even be a little bit better than what we give him credit for. If you check out some of our friends over at Baseball Savant and the work that they do, number one, if you look at all of James Wood's categories, his average exit velocity, his barrel percentage, his hard hit percentage, his bat speed, his chase percentage, his walk percentage, all these things kind of indicate, in my opinion, a power hitter. His average exit velo was well into the 90th percentile. His hard hit percentage, well into the 90th percentile. His barrel percentage, well above average for Major League Baseball. His expected slug, well above average in Major League Baseball. That is what I want from a power hitter. James Wood, and what is unique about him is that in today's game, you just seek all these different skill sets that make a player unique. Elly De La Cruz is the talk of town, and it's because this guy could steal 50-plus bases, but also has the potential to hit 50-plus home runs. Now, James Wood, he's in that bucket. Now, I don't think he's going to steal 50 bases. I don't think that's realistic. The Nationals aren't going to ask him to do that. You already have C.J. Abrams and even Dylan Cruz who could steal a ton of bases up in the bigs. But James Wood has that potential, though. This guy could easily be a 30-30 player. And in fact, I would not be surprised at some point early on in his career, he is that. And it might even be this year. Even then, those expectations might be a bit much. But when you look at it from above, it doesn't really seem that crazy. Because where his sprint speed is, it's in the 85th percentile of all of baseball. That's how fast this guy is. Being at 6'7", just a crazy big-time prospect for the Nationals. He is going to live up to every expectation that we have all set for him. And even looking further into it, the confidence that I have in James Wood of being an elite hitter, not just for power, but overall, is sky high. I think the reason why I give him an 8 out of 10 of my confidence of him being a superstar is those 2 points that I've left off are the questions surrounding his defense. But I think you all know me by now. I don't really value defense all that much. If I'm just talking about James Wood being the best hitter possible, which is what I want him to be, I'm at a 10 out of 10 for him. And if you look at his spray chart this last year, I think that kind of resembles the kind of hitter that James Wood could be. Looking at some of his home runs over on Baseball Savant, most of them went the other way. Meaning, as a left-handed hitter, he hit it into left field. That is a pretty unique skill set for a young player. And even then, a lot of his hits and a lot of the power went the other way. I think with that being in mind, there are only a few players at that young of an age when he was just 21, 22 years old, where that doesn't really happen all too much. And the one player in town that did that at an early age was Juan Soto. Now, do I think he's going to be Juan Soto? I don't think so. Juan Soto is a generational talent. But I certainly think James Wood will be certainly effective like Juan Soto. I think having him in the middle of this lineup for the next 6-7 years is going to be a huge advantage for this team. Like James Wood, and what I saw from this past season, the more it kind of sits there with me, the more I like it. Because elite hitters can go the other way, and especially do it with power. And that is what James Wood did as a rookie. And he's going to do this in year 2 with the Nationals. I'm sure of it. Hitting 9 home runs, stealing 14 bases, having 78 hits in his 295 at-bats this past year, sporting a 781 OPS and a 427 slug. I feel really good about where James Wood is in his production. And I saw a lot of people last year kind of complain about the fact that, well, James Wood is not pulling the ball, so the power is not there. It's one of the weirdest complaints I've ever heard as far as major league hitters go. Like, what happened to the time where you want players to go the other way? What made Juan Soto is that he had power to go the other way. A lot of it is that it's going to take some time for James Wood to adjust to major league pitching. Believe it or not, AAA in majors, as far as pitching goes, is a huge difference. Guys are just better. It's going to take some time, and it did take some time for James Wood to start pulling the ball. But to see what I saw from him last year, that he was still putting up great numbers going the other way, and the power going the other way in particular, it was out of this world. Because counting it up right now, he had 2 home runs rather, going to right field. The rest of them went to left or left center field. That's the kind of unique power that this guy has. And if you pull up the home run numbers from players early on in their career that can do that kind of thing, it's Juan Soto. There's a handful of other guys out there, like an Aaron Judge. James Wood, and what makes him special is his unique power. But I think another skill set that I think we will all be able to see is that he has also a unique contact ability. And he is going to hit the hell out of the baseball when it comes his way. So, as far as James Wood being a star, I think that question has already answered itself from what I saw this past season. The pure hitting ability on top of the extreme power that he possesses is going to be a huge treat for myself and you watching him all season long. And by the way, he makes his season debut today after starting off the season with like some soreness in his leg. It's no big deal. He makes his debut today against Juan Soto and the New York Mets. We'll have that preview for you a little bit later on. And could James Wood hit a home run in his first at bat of 2025? Might go over to FanDuel, place a bet on it. We'll see about that. But before, let's get into some Nationals talk in 2025. We are talking about the Nationals in 2025, but they have a tougher road to the postseason than what you think. Like on paper, this team is talented. On paper, in years past, I would probably put this team in a playoff category. But there's one thing that you may not be thinking about that will be in their way. I'll tell you what that is after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting features because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you haven't already, check us out over on YouTube. Again, search on Locked On Nationals. And it's not just over on YouTube, it's wherever you get your podcast. So look up Locked On Nationals, and that is where you'll find your daily coverage of the Washington Nationals. Let's get into this now. The Nationals have a much tougher road to the postseason, not just because of the lack of spending in free agency, not just because this is a young core that is going to take some time to really kind of gel and mesh together, but the Nationals have a tough road because of the division that they play in. If you look across the teams that are in this division, we can talk about the New York Mets all we want. Top 10 payroll, the highest payroll in baseball, and they have a loaded lineup. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos, who in my opinion might be their second best hitter right behind Juan Soto, Jesse Winker, Francisco Alvarez, Jeff McNeil, and Jose Siri. Then they also have a pretty damn good rotation as well, led by Kodai Senga, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, who's going to be a pretty big impact, this guy, in my opinion. And then you have the Atlanta Braves, where they have this young core that they have developed in-house. They have made savvy moves like getting Matt Olson to replace Freddie Freeman just a few years ago. And Ronald Acuna is going to be on the shelf, but they've got their pitching rotation locked in yet again. They've got Chris Sale, the former Cy Young winner, Ronaldo Lopez, former top prospect of the Nationals, Spencer Schwellenbach, their rookie from this past season, Grant Holmes, and Ian Anderson as we sit here today. And then the Phillies, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Alec Boehm, Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto, Brandon Marsh. And then, of course, they've got one of the best pitchers in the game also with Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, and Jesus Luzardo, who they just traded for this past offseason. This is a loaded division that, in my opinion, when you play them 52 times this year, which they will play, well, I guess if you take away the Miami Marlins, you play your division 52 times a year. Those three teams are more than likely going to be postseason teams. And then you have the Marlins, who you should beat up on. But playing these teams in your division 52 times a year, that is a brutal gauntlet of a schedule. 52 of the 162 games, and I guess what? You take away 14 of those, that's 38 games with just these three teams. You're more than likely going to have a losing record against those three teams. Now, last year, the Nationals, for whatever reason, had the Braves number. But with the Mets and with the Phillies, I'm not expecting that, and I don't really expect it against the Braves this year. And this is not a knock on the Nationals. This is just a tip of the cap to the other teams. The Nationals were that team in the 2010s where the Mets had to look at them and say, well, you got to play the Nationals a lot this season. And the Braves, the reason why the Braves kind of weren't the best of their capabilities was because the Nationals were in their way. And same with the Phillies and all of those three teams and the Marlins in that as well. Like, we were once that. And unfortunately, while we were just the cream of the crop in the NL East for that run, those teams bulked up, built their farm, and made really smart, savvy moves in free agency and making smart trades if you're like the Braves. And this is where they are today. Having that in mind, the Nationals, this is just simply a really tough ask. Like, you play in a very good division. And the NL East right now is at probably its best that it's been over the last decade. Like, when the Nationals were really good in the 2010s, the Nationals were just simply a really good baseball team. But also, you were really just competing against the Braves. And then in 2015, the Mets had their miracle run. Outside of that, the Miami Marlins, they always had talent, but they were never really competing for anything. The Mets were, even then, again, they had that 2015 season. They weren't competing. And the Philadelphia Phillies were awful after 2011. So looking at this now, like, yes, I do think the Nationals will be competitive this year. And I do think that there is a chance, a small chance, at them making a postseason run if things really go their way. But having those three teams ahead of you, the three teams that you're going to be playing the most out of all these teams, these might be the three best teams in the division. Or not even the division, in the National League, what am I saying? That's how good they are. And you might be sitting there back as a Nationals fan, just like I am, thinking, well, you are gassing these teams up. Let's just be honest here. These are three very elite ball clubs with a set foundation, good veteran pieces, a great pitching staff, good organizations from top to bottom. The Nationals were that at one point, but we're kind of up in the air. So with that in mind, yeah, it's going to be a really, really tough road to the postseason for the Nationals. But it's not because of themselves. It's simply because this division, the division that you're going to have to play the most, is really tough. Going up against a loaded New York Mets team with a ton of offensive firepower going against the Atlanta Braves, who should be better this year and who should be healthier, and have the reigning Cy Young with Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez coming back as well. Then you've got the Phillies with Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and your former Nationals team basically right then and there. It's going to be a really, really tough time for the Nationals to get back on that mountaintop. But with that in mind, crazier things have happened. And the beauty of baseball is that you have 162 games. You can either make right with it or you can make wrong with it. And if the Nationals, if they do what's right, and if they play their game and they figure out what they can, how they can win in 2025, then maybe you'll see them beat up on the Braves again. Maybe this year it's going to be the Phillies or the Mets. You simply never know. And also, the beauty of baseball, or really I guess it's not beautiful. It sucks, but players get hurt. It's a long season. Not saying that it's going to happen, but you never know. So you could see that happen in 2025. But thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Just search up Locked On Nationals, and that is where you'll find your daily coverage of the Washington Nationals. Now, let's get into some weekend spring training games. The Nationals take on the New York Mets tonight today with James Wood making his debut. We'll have that preview for you after this. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get talk. James Wood makes his spring training debut finally for your Washington Nationals. And yes, it has been a time that we have been waiting for. You want to see James Wood. Unfortunately, it is not on Maston, but the game is on SNY for the New York Mets. Here's the thing, though. The lineups are in. Do you know who pitches for the Nationals today? Yes, it is Shin Ogasawara. And my God, good luck against this lineup. Check out the Mets lineup today. Just the first 5 guys. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and Mark Vientos. Oh my. This is a pretty rude awakening for Shin. Because if you look at that, just that top 5, that is a pretty lethal top 5. But he'll probably get an inning or two today. See what he can do. If Shin really does well against these top few guys, like with the Mets coming in town here, then that'll be a really interesting sight to see, because this is going to be a real test for him. He is certainly in the mix to be in the starting rotation. At least that's what we think today. But if he can get the job done, watch out, because that's pretty impressive going against that lineup. But now let's get into the Nationals talk of it, because it's James Wood's debut or in spring training for 2025. And James Wood is going to be the DH. But even a more fascinating thing here is he's going to be your leadoff hitter. And the way that they have set up this lineup is James Wood, Ahmed Rosario, Jose Tena, Keibert Ruiz, Alex Call, Robert Hassel III, who has been on fire so far, Juan Yepez, Andrew Pinckney, and Nasim Nunez. That is a fascinating lineup. And having James Wood in that leadoff role, I really wonder if Davey Martinez has that kind of set in stone moving forward. I've always kind of pictured that CJ Abrams is going to be your leadoff hitter. Now, CJ has the day off today, so maybe that's why they have James Wood in that one spot. But the analytics now say that your best hitter should be leading off, because it gives them the most opportunities to, number one, just get at-bats in. And you want your best hitter to have the most at-bats so he can do the most damage. So if the Nationals go with that approach this year, which, by the way, I'm kind of iffy on as far as the analytics go for it, it makes sense. But I'm a little bit of a like CJ Abrams be that guy for them. But now, if James Wood is your leadoff hitter, I think that causes some interesting debates here that I think we'll probably get into this coming week and how I would construct this lineup, because as spring training has gone on, you will see more and more and more ways that Dave Martinez will construct this lineup. But I think there is one right way to do it, and I think we will discuss that on next week's Locked On Nationals. But until then, you guys get to enjoy the weekend of spring training with the Washington Nationals. I will be down there in just about 2 weeks. I cannot wait. And I'll talk to you guys next month when it is March, because March 1st is tomorrow. I cannot wait. Baseball is so close to being back here in Washington, D.C. So we'll have all the discussions of the Washington Nationals right here on Locked On Nationals. And thank you guys for sticking with me all week as I've been battling strep throat. But we will be back better than ever on Monday. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.